Welcome to Ignite Agility. Today, Christian and I are talking about how tired we are of all the noise on social media. But first, hit like and subscribe. Christian, are you tired of all the Scrum noise
Yeah,
on
to be
social
clear, she
media?
meant there's noise everywhere in the world. But to be clear, it was the Scrum and Agile noise. And what we mean, or what I mean, is about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there seemed to be a theme going around about Agile is dead, Scrum is dead. And I remember just looking at Angela saying, we never saw project management is dead.
Waterfall is dead.
So what do we mean by it's dead? Is it because, adults, we tend to take the first time we experience something, and if it's a bad experience, we manufacture it going forward. So was I at a space where Scrum was not brought in as it should have been? It was, highly prescriptive, and it did not work. So Scrum is dead to me, dead to that organization, but the concepts behind this aren't dead. They still work. It's just a matter of, if you see another one of our podcasts about making sure we understand what we're trying to do with Scrum and Agile.
Will it work for you?
That's the key.
Because if it's dead, does that mean all the companies who are actually working that way should stop? What was the cause of death? Did they just drop over?
Yeah.
Rigor mortis sets in?
So,
Oh no, did you get the memo? Scrum died.
It's dead to me, I think, is what we're hearing, and it's dead to where I've worked. Similar to when people say in the real world, it's in your experience. It's not a holistic, here's what happened to me, that's what's happening everywhere.
We had Tom Meller on our Meetup not too long ago, and he was talking about very similar posts to the ones you reacted to there on LinkedIn especially. And he was saying, in his opinion, he felt that it was people who were trying to be overly provocative. They're trying to get clicks, they're trying to get followers, they're just trying to have those kinds of posts, but they aren't really doing any good.
And I don't know what good what good comes from that. Being provocative, posting something. We just reacted to one, or we read it. We didn't react because I don't like to give time to it, but I did read it. And if you had read the first line or two, provocative, you read further down and it backs away from it. And so it causes all this spin, all this stir. And I'm like, what good does that angst do for us? Because to someone who might be just looking, they read that and they might take it as, yeah, that's right. And now again, we can't decide for everybody, and people can decide for themselves, but I just don't know what the goal of getting clicks is going to do for you if you're always doing the clickbait and switch.
It was total clickbait, and they wanted people to react to the first two lines, and their standard answer to anyone who dared to comment, you didn't dare to comment, I of course, jump right in because
I don't engage.
But anybody who dared to comment was responded to immediately with, did you read the whole post?
Yeah.
Did you read the whole post? And the joke is on that author, because there were a number of people I know in the community who did the same thing I did. And we were able to say, yes, we did actually read the whole post.
I don't read, just for the record.
You're not that strong of a reader.
Not that strong.
But the clickbait backfired on them, because not only, to your point, if the people who didn't read the whole post just stopped toward the beginning, then that did make the author look really silly and overly prescriptive and like they didn't understand what they were talking about. If you did bother to read through the whole thing and realize, oh, they were just trying to sucker us in, and then they offended everybody in the closing because they talked about, well, people make excuses and people this and people that. And, I was one of the people who dared to say, I still disagree with you because I don't believe the worst in people. You say excuses, I say an opportunity to talk to each other and figure out what's going on. Interestingly enough, they deleted all the comments
Huh.
on that post.
You know, it's so the clickbait thing bugs me. It also speaks to the world we live in. There's so much noise. We have to put out these headlines that try to be provocative and catch your attention because we're vying for your attention. And, you know, we want to believe that people are smart enough to read these things and figure them out. But at the same time, I don't know what it does for you.
Well, and it does seem that it's people who are trying to be provocative, get followers, clickbait, blah, 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 blah. But the trend that is driving me crazy is for those of us who dare to engage, because not many people will. I get direct messages, or people will say, oh, I read your post, or I read your response to that person's comment, and I agreed. But they didn't dare like or comment because these authors are going after
Yeah.
anybody who offers a differing opinion. So much for diverse opinions, so much for being open to having a discussion.
I'm open to collaboration and conversation, except
as long as you agree with everything I say.
only if it's in my echo chamber. Yes.
Right. And it is a fair number of men condescending me, but I won't even go so far as to call it mansplaining, because I can femsplain
Yeah.
right back at them.
Agile splain.
It's agile splaining and scrum splaining. Gary Hansen and I, and he knows that I tell this story. He tells this story. He and I were joking on LinkedIn that we should have trademarked it, because I'll never forget it. Gary and I were having coffee at this large employer we were both working at a number of years ago, and somebody walked up to engage him. They knew him in conversation. They had no idea who I was. They didn't know I was teaching a certified Scrum Master class and had to get right back in there after the break. And so he starts talking to Gary about the Scrum value of respect. And this person was all whipped up because he had just encountered a really disrespectful situation. And he stops, realizing he doesn't know who I am, but he didn't try to introduce himself. He just looks right at me and he goes, you know the Scrum values? And I said, openness, commitment, focus, respect, and courage. And he goes, no, I don't think that's right. Oh. But anyways, and he turns right back to Gary. And Gary's just like looking at me in the eye going, are you going to let that slide? Wow. And I'm just like, dude.
What do you do?
Yeah,
Pick your battles.
Right? Who cares, right? But then he kept saying Schwaber, 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 like Ken Schwaber always says. And I said, do you mean
Schwaber?
Schwaber? And he goes, oh, I like to pronounce it Schwaber.
Okay. I like to purposely mispronounce words too, but names are different.
But how the irony, right? This guy's talking about the Scrum value of respect.
I don't think
and
that
I'm like,
means
well,
what you think it means.
Look at the time. I gotta go.
Gotta get back.
So I go to teach the class, and at the next break, my phone's kind of blowing up, right? My LinkedIn is... Gary had gone out on LinkedIn and said, I just witnessed my favorite Scrum trainer get Scrum splained. So that ought to be a thing, right?
Yeah.
It ought to just be...
Hashtag Scrum splain.
And I'm not trying to say that, you know, my posts don't have provocative topics. The one thing I will say is I go out of my way to invite discussion. Just because somebody disagrees, it's like, let's chat about that. Maybe I'll learn something from a differing point of view.
And maybe that's part of what's bugging me with the social media noise is that, you know, we have people come to our classes, they link in with us, you know, we link in with people that we've met in the Agile community, but I just worry that we're too much into our own small world and we're not realizing or not inviting those outside opinions in.
Is that what you mean when you say echo chamber?
Yes.
Well, so do you have any pearls of wisdom for what to do about it?
A, be open, but B, you're going to have to actively do it. You're going to have to actively do it.
Do what?
Not look outside, reach outside. It's not something that's going to happen with the algorithms, as they say. Am I saying that properly? I probably am not. But, you know, you go to YouTube and you watch one video and they feed you a bunch of others that you can easily get into rabbit holes, easily get into echo chambers. So I think it's a concerted effort concentrated effort to find different opinions and be out there. I was having dinner with neighbors, and totally different industry, and his perception of the world in terms of the economy was everything's great. And I was like, wow, I didn't know anybody could think, but he was in wealth management, right? And stock market, all that's doing great. And I shared with him, this is what some of us are seeing in other places. And he's like, thank you for sharing that with me. I had no idea. He was extremely open to it. So I think it's being open. I think it's asking, and it's absolutely having to reach out and try versus hoping that it happens.
How do you feel about blocking people on social media?
If it's causing you angst and it's really not helping you, there's feedback you can take, and it hits, and it's real because you're contemplating it. I do that, or I have done that. Why do I do that? That's what I call landing. If it's stuff that just totally creates this really quick visceral reaction, there is no truth to it, and it's just causing you to worry, yeah, just if that noise is something you need to eliminate, then yes. But if it's stuff that's really making you think, check your ego, make you really self-contemplate, then I wouldn't block. If it's good dialogue.
I go back and forth on it, because have I blocked people if it's really, really toxic? Yeah, without question.
Yeah.
But one of the people who flat out asked for discussion, they flat out said, what do other people think about this? And I shared what I thought. But because I disagreed with that person, their first response was the mansplaining, scrumsplaining. And when I just said, I'm going to kind of ignore that, right? Because I am a woman. I'm in my 50s. I know what mansplaining feels like. Going to ignore it. Going to just focus on the topic, right? Just let's let people learn. Let's get back to the topic. I don't even know what I said, but it just set this person off. And they went to the trouble to private message me to tell me they were going to block me. And then they waited till a few more comments came in, but those comments were actually supporting me.
What you were trying to cover.
I can't control those people chiming in and supporting what I said. But then I got one final message, and they're like, blocked. Well, why bother? Why not just
block you?
Why not just hit the block button? And the reason I go back and forth on it is I'm not a big fan of censorship, because then I don't think that we learn. And if the whole point is that we're supposed to learn from some of these conversations, I don't know that that's the answer. I'm with you where if it's, particularly toxic or just not worth even seeing in your feed, do it. But even the people who have been deleting all the discussion from their own posts when there's dissenting opinions, that's yet another form of censorship, because they're so worried about whatever image they're trying to portray.
And, we've said it for years, growth doesn't come from comfort. Growth comes from discomfort. So you're not going to grow. You're not going to get anything if you're always seeking the comfort of echo chambers, everybody agreeing with what I say. It just gets back to, what are you trying to do?
So I guess our pearls of wisdom are stay open, try to be an example, or maybe we should just take your wife's advice and tell everybody to do better.
Do better. I hear that daily.
Do better, everybody.
It's my middle name. Do better. Thank you.
So if you're tired of the Scrum social media noise, we are too.
Just do better.